Hey guys, it's Jasmine and I am back today with another nursing video. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of being like super informative and educational, I figured I would share with you guys like a little story time, even though I never really do story times. So I figured I would share with you guys my nursing version of a story time and basically do hashtag experience time and let you guys know about the first time they floated me to the ER. So if you want to get a little bit of the tea on me floating to the ER, definitely stick around. If you are new to my channel, I want to say welcome and to let you know that I am a registered nurse and I am primarily a critical care nurse. However, the position that I used to hold was a float pool nurse. Every once in a while, I was able to float to the ER if the ICU in that specific hospital didn't have any needs for me. When I would go to the ER, my primary job was supposed to take ICU holds. So let me make a little disclaimer before I start. I am not bashing the ER. I have quite a few friends who work in the ER who are amazing ER nurses. And I think there's two different type A personalities. One is very ER and one is very ICU. And most of the time you will see like ER versus ICU. And if you've worked in either the ICU or the ER, you know exactly what I mean. Like I said, I'm not here to bash anybody or anybody's specialty or say somebody's specialty is better than the other, because it's all personal preference. But let me tell y'all what happened. So I go in, this was my last shift of the week. I was there the previous day. I was at the smallest hospital of all the hospitals that I actually could float through. So I go to the unit and I was like, oh, I was here yesterday. I'm gonna have my same patients. Everything's gonna be cool. You know, all I gotta do is get updates on them. So I go in, I look at the assignment board and I'm like, where's my name? And they're like, oh, Jasmine, we had extra nurses. So since you're the float nurse, we're going to send you down to the ER to take ICU holds. And I was like, excuse me? Like, I know generally it's my job as a float nurse to get floated first. But I was just a little bit pressed because I was like, I was here yesterday and I had my patients yesterday and continuation of care, you know. So I was like, okay, you know, whatever. I'm not even gonna trip. This is my last shift of the week, so it is what it is. So I was like, okay, you know, I had all my stuff, my breakfast, my coffee in my bag and stuff. So I just go down to the ER and then I got lost. I was like, what is going on? I was trying to get through like the back door, but my badge didn't give me access because I'm not an ER nurse. So it was just like frustrating even trying to find it. Then come to find out, like, when you actually work there, you got to go through the MRI and CT doors in order to get to like where the nurses like break room is. And I was like, nobody ever told me that. They just told me to go downstairs. Can't even get here. So they were like, you know, thank you for coming down and taking these ICU holds. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Just show me where I need to go. So I put all my stuff up and they show me where I need to go. And the ER that I was in has pods. So you have like the triage pod that was in the front. And then you have like the hold pod that was in like the middle. And that was like ICU holds or telemetry holds. And then you have like the back triage, which was like the third pod, and that was basically for people who came in with like runny noses, and you know, they were going to kind of be in and out. So like runny nose, cold, strep, like simple things, headaches, things that they honestly could go to like their primary care and get seen for, but they come to the ER. They put me in the middle pod, mind you. And when I initially came in, I was the only person in the middle pod. And I was like, do y'all realize I don't work here? Like, I don't work here. Why am I in this pod by myself? Luckily, there was only 3 ICU holds. Usually the ratio for ICU nurses is a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2. Every once in a while, you have a 1-to-3. But generally, you're a 1-to-2. So there were 3 technical ICU patients. 2 of them were vented and 1 was just on drip. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to trip. But my whole thing was, I was the only one in that pod. So if I needed any help or any assistance, I was kind of SOL. I get there and I got report from 2 different people. So I was like, okay. So the first guy that I got report from, he actually was an ICU nurse. So report went fantastic. Like it was like boom, 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 boom. Okay. And I was like, cool. So after I got that report, I went to the next guy and he was like, okay, so you're taking this patient? I was like, yeah. So he was like, oh, he came in with XYZ, this, that, and he's pending this procedure. And he was like, okay, do you have any questions? I was like, yes. Like, that's not all the report you're gonna, like, I'm not gonna allow you to just give me that short of a report. I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, you know, is he on O2? Like, what has been his heart rhythm since you've been here? Where's his IV size? You know, what do you have your drip set at? Like, now I'm gonna make you go and we're gonna do bedside report, because usually I don't make nurses that give me a report go and do bedside report. If you try to give me like a sucky report, I'm gonna be the nurse that's gonna make you give me bedside report, because now I need to know, is this patient even alive before you leave? Like, what? No, sir, you're not gonna do that. So he was all mad that I made him go and give me bedside report, but I really didn't care because I needed to see the status of that patient before he left. I got my reports or whatever, and I was like, okay, can somebody show me where the med room is? Like, where's the med room? Where's the supply room? So I'm like looking all around. So I end up having to call up to triage, and I was like, hey, this is Jasmine, and I don't know where anything is, and I'm the only one in this pod. Can y'all send the charge nurse back here so she can show me where things are? So the charge nurse comes back there and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were the only person in this pod, but there should be somebody coming in at 9. So ER has these weird hours. They're not like the ICU where you do like 7A to 7P or 7P to 7A. They do like these weird shifts. They can do like 11 to 11. It's weird. You can do 9 in the morning to 9 at night. Like, they have all these different kind of crazy hours. I mean, I guess it works for some people, but I was like thrown off because I was like, what? So anyways, there was a girl that was going to come in at 9, and then there was a guy that was going to come in at 11. So I ended up not being the only person in that pod for long, but to be in that pod from like 7 to 9 and not know where anything was, I was just a little annoyed. She ended up showing me where the med room was and where the supply room was, and there was like 3 different supply rooms, and they all had different stuff in it, but they were all in all 3 of the different pods. So that was a little annoying, and not OCD by any means, but the fact that they were all in different places, and when you go in the rooms, everything was so unorganized. I was like starting to have a little bit of anxiety when I went in there. Like, I would go in there and immediately be so mad. Like, why is nothing in order? Why is like respiratory not with respiratory? Cleaning supplies are not with cleaning supplies. Nutrition stuff is not with nutrition stuff. Like, what is going on? Like, wound care is not with wound care. Like, everything was just everywhere, and I was just like, how do y'all function in this? So the day was kind of going good, and then my 2 vented patients end up getting rooms. So I was thinking, my patients get rooms, I'm gonna go back to the ICU with them. However, the ICU had an extra nurse, so I end up staying in the ER. So I had this one guy who was on like a cardine drip, and then I end up getting a med-surg patient and a tele patient. They were on the call like every 2 minutes. And I was just like, oh no, I am not used to this. Like, oh, can you bring me a water? Oh, can you bring me a juice? Oh, I have to use the bathroom. Can you unhook my IVs? There was some stuff that the ER tech was able to help me with. So I was okay actually having a tech there. So an ER tech is, I believe, the same thing as like a CNA, but they can do a little bit more. But I mean, she was like a big help that day because they were like on the call, like bing, 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 bing. And I was like, okay, well, I gotta go change my drip. Give me a second and I'll bring you a water. Like, give me a second, I'll bring you a juice. It was a different experience because I'm just not used to those type of patients. but the ER tech played a huge role when it came to that. So this one lady was like, oh my gosh, my head hurts so bad and I'm in so much pain. Is there something you can give me? So she ended up having morphine as a PRN drug. So I was like, okay, cool. On the one hand, how bad is it? She was like, oh my gosh, it's a 9. I was like, okay, cool. I have something that I can give you. So I went to the med room and I go to pull out the morphine, and it was a med discrepancy. And I was like, what? And so then I looked up from the Pyxis, and there's like all kinds of discrepancies just sitting in a pile. And I was like, how do you guys function with all of these med discrepancies? Like, if there's a med discrepancy in the ICU, I want it handled immediately. I am not leaving to the freaking med room until somebody comes and helps me clear this discrepancy, whether it's my fault or somebody else's fault, which I've done med discrepancies I don't know how many times, just because sometimes you're in a rush and you miscount. But I will get it handled like immediately. I'm not just going to take my med discrepancy, throw it on the top of the Pyxis and kind of leave it. Call the charge nurse again and I'm like, hey, there's a med discrepancy. She's like, oh, there's always med discrepancies, don't worry about it. I was like, oh, no, I need you to come in here and help me with this med discrepancy, because I am not going to have anybody think that I took some morphine home or just miscounted and didn't care because you don't want to come and clear this discrepancy with me. Come in here, clear this discrepancy. So she came in and we cleared it, and she was like, oh, in the ER, you know, things are always in a rush, or we have emergencies, which I completely understand. Like, if a patient come in and they're crashing, you go in and you grab a medication. You really are not sometimes thinking about, let me make sure I do the right count. There's a patient whose life is in your hand. That's something you can handle later. But at that time, my morphine was not for somebody who was dying. So I wanted her to come in and clear with me immediately. So luckily she was like not like a mean charge nurse, and she was very helpful, and she was able to come and help me clear it. But I was just blown away by how many medication discrepancies there were. I was just like, so things got like crazy, and like I said, I was running back and forth between call lights and also titrating the drip. So I was like my little Fitbit was like going off. I think I hit my like 10,000 steps by like 1 o'clock, because I was like all over the place. And finally I looked up and it was like about 4 o'clock, and I was like, I am starving. Like, I need lunch. Mind you, I ate breakfast at like 6 that morning. So I was like, I need lunch. So one of the guys was like, oh, you know, I'll cover you while you go to lunch. And I was like, okay, cool. Right as I was coming back from lunch, there was a doctor, and he was like, hey, I'm such and such. I am the cardiologist for this patient. And I was like, okay. And he was like, do you know why he has teleorders? And I was like, well, he came in and his blood pressure was high, but you know, he ended up telling us that he had taken his blood pressure medication in X amount of time, and that's why his blood pressure was high. So we restarted his meds, and then the hospitalist actually wrote orders for tele. I said, but he hasn't been having any like irregularities, and I was showing him like previous EKGs. I was like, so I think we just need to get case management to help him with his meds, and I really don't see a reason why he can't go home. And so the cardiologist was like, I completely agree. And he was like, you know, thank you so much for like all this information. And he was like, you're not usually in the ER, are you? And I was like, no. I was like, no, I'm a float nurse, which it's easy for doctors to like recognize if I work there or not. Like, first of all, I'm black. Second of all, I have red hair, and there's not a lot of nurses like me, honestly, in San Antonio that look like me. So it's very easy for me to be pointed out. But he was like, you don't usually work here, do you? And I was like, no. And he was like, are you new? I said, no, I'm a float nurse. So I ended up having a total of like 7 patients that day, and I was just not about that life. Like, ER's turnaround is just like ridiculous. I'm not used to that. I'm used to downgrading like 1 patient. Maybe if I downgrade both of my patients, I get to leave like 2 hours early from work. But generally, I don't continuously downgrade, get patients downgrade, like the turnaround time is just not like that. So I definitely was not about that life. Basically, the day was just a big old blur. from that point, I looked up and it was changing shifts. So the nurse that I got report from that morning, he was back. So I had to give him a report. I basically gave him a head to toe report. And he didn't make me go to do a bedside report, but if he would have, I definitely would have. But I could tell that he was just already annoyed that he had to get report from me, and he was giving me like all kinds of attitude, and I was just killing him with kindness. I was smiling, I was being nice, so I was just killing him with kindness because it was making him even madder. Like, he was so red getting report from me, and I could just tell that I was just getting on his nerve, but I wasn't doing anything mean. I was being nice. He did not want to get report from me. Through the whole report, then we got to the end where I tell him, you know, what's pending on the patient. So I was like, you know, the patient's pending PCU orders and they're pending an LP. And he was like, what is an LP? And I kind of giggled like initially, just because how he was treating me when he said, what is an LP? I was like, is he joking? And then I realized he really wasn't. And I was like, a lumbar puncture? And he was like, oh, okay. So is the patient intubated? And I was like, no, they don't need to be intubated for a lumbar puncture. And he was like, oh. And he was like, well, did you do consent? And I was like, yes. He kept asking me different questions. And so I was answering his questions. But I was thinking, like, for you to be so upset with me and for you to have this big attitude and come in with your chest all puffed out, huffing and puffing, now you're asking me 1,000,001 questions about an LP. And I know ER nurses know what LPs are because I get report from ER nurses all the time, and my patients are pending LPs because it's not a procedure that you immediately go do. Either way it goes, I wasn't rude to him, I wasn't nasty to him, but he was giving me just all kind of short, snippy attitude, and I was just like, bro, at this point I am so tired that I cannot even argue with you. I'm not even gonna go back and forth with you. I mean, it just is what it is. You take everybody's attitude with a grain of salt and you just keep on moving. So, you know, it's just a part of nursing. Like, you'll get report from some people who are really nasty, and then you'll get report from people who are so nice and so sweet. And like I said, the two nurses that came in earlier that day, they were so nice to me. They were so helpful. Like, anything I needed help with or needed assistance with, they was helpful. The ER tech was so bomb. Like, she was legit saving my day because my patients with those call lights was like running about that thin. So she definitely helped me out a lot. Overall, ER is just not an area that I would ever personally want to work 24/7, and those medication discrepancies would probably drive me insane, as well as all that mess in those freaking supply rooms. I need some kind of order. And you can definitely tell there's a big difference between the ER nurse and the ICU nurse, but I think it's cool. It's so fun experiencing different units and seeing how the flow of things are. Like, even though theirs is like a chaotic structure, like, they know what they're doing. Like, triage nurses, they are so bomb. Like, they are in there with the dots. It is like 100 at all times. It's not 0 to 100, because ICU is like 0 to 100. Like, stabilize them is 0, and then things go really bad, it's to 100. The ER is like constantly on 100, unless you're in like the back pod where it's like a runny nose. It was very interesting to see and very exciting to see. It was just very overwhelming, and I was just like so exhausted by the end of that day. I have floated to the ER several times since then, and it has basically been the same way, as far as being just a lot of chaos, a lot of turnaround every single time I go. Yeah, it's just not something that I could see myself doing every single shift. But it is fun every once in a while to switch it up and go down there and you know, work with the ER nurses and the ER docs. So I hope you guys enjoyed my experience time, and if you would like more videos like this where I share different things about what I've experienced as a nurse, definitely let me know. Leave it below. I felt like this would be something a little bit different than my usual videos, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. Make sure that you subscribe before you leave if you have not, as well as make sure to like this video and share it. If you are not following me on Snapchat and IG, definitely go do that now. And do people still go on Twitter? Like, is Twitter still a thing? I have a Twitter. I haven't used it in so long, but let me know. Yeah, let me know if I should get back on Twitter. I don't know. If I should, definitely leave it below and let me know, and I'll post my Twitter handle on Snapchat. So definitely follow me there. And until the next video, I'll talk to all of you guys later. Bye.